Well, greetings again, all you eager listeners to the grand Mahabharata epic by Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. So we've now proceeded onto the Shamshaktaka Vardha Parva, which is a sub-parva within the Drona Vardha Parva. So in our last episode, we had already commenced the Samsaktaka Parva, but because we were reading from Ganguli's edition, there was no division of the sections because of the manuscript that he used. So today, before proceeding with what is the second chapter of that Samsaktaka Vardha Parva, we already read the first chapter from Ganguli, but I'll just give you the brief outline of the Parva as it's described in Debroy's book. So before that, a Mangala Charana, Vandeham Sri Guru, Sri Yuta Padakamalam, Sri Gurun Vaishnavangscha, Sri Rupam, Sagrajatam, Sahagana Raghunathan Vitang Tang Sajivam, Sadvaitam, Savadhutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padan, Sahagana Lalita, Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha, Narayana Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Deving Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayamudirayet. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the Shamshaktaka Vardha Parva. This Parva has 707 shlokas and 16 chapters. So this Parva is similar in length to Bhagavad Gita. So the Shamshaktakas are warriors who have taken an oath, and these warriors, primarily the Trigartas, take an oath to die or kill Arjuna. This section is named after that oath. With Arjuna out of the way, the idea is that Drona will capture Yudhishthira. On the 12th day of the battle, Arjuna kills several of the Samshaktaka warriors. Drona kills many of the Panchavas, Matsyas and Kekayas. Bhima kills the king of Anga. Bhagadatta kills the king of Dasharna. And Ruchi Parva and Ruchi Parva and unleashes the Vaishnava weapon on Arjuna, which is countered by Krishna. Arjuna kills Bhagadatta. Arjuna kills Vrishaka and Achala, Shakuni's brothers. Ashwatthama kills Nila of Mahishmati. Arjuna kills 3 of Karna's brothers. And so on to the second chapter of that. So chapter 994 of the Mahabharata, chapter 17 of the Shamshaktaka Vardha Parva, or the Drona Parva. Sanjaya said, O king, the Shamshaktakas were delighted. They stationed themselves on their chariots on level ground, arrayed in a vyuha in the shape of a half moon. O venerable one, on seeing that Kiriti was advancing towards them, those tigers among men were delighted. They roared loudly. That noise resounded in the directions and to the sub-directions and covered the sky. Because the ground was covered with only a few men, there were no echoes. On seeing that they were extremely delighted, Dhananjaya smiled a little and addressed these words to Krishna. O one who has Devaki as a mother, behold, at a time when they should be weeping, the Trigarta brothers are delighted. They are about to be killed in the battle, or perhaps this is certainly a time for the Trigartas to rejoice. They will obtain excellent words that cannot be obtained by those who are cowards. Having spoken these words to the mighty armed Rishikesha in the battle, Arjuna encountered the army of the Trigartas, arranged in a battle formation. Falguna grasped the conch shell, Devadatta, embellished with gold, and blew it with great force, filling all the directions. The Samshaptaka chariots were terrified at the sound. In that battle, they were motionless, as if they were made out of stone. Their mounts dilated their eyes, with ears, heads, and lips paralyzed. Their feet did not move. They excreted urine and vomited blood. They were, when they regained consciousness, the army was arrayed again and simultaneously released arrows tufted with heron feathers towards Pandu's son. However, Arjuna used 15 swift arrows to counter thousands of those. The valiant one was swift and severed the arrows before they could reach him. Each of them then pierced Arjuna with 10 sharp arrows, but Partha pierced them back with 3 arrows each. O king, each of them then pierced Partha with 5 arrows, but the valorous one pierced each one of them back with 2 arrows. They became extremely angry and enveloped Arjuna and Keshava with sharp arrows, like rain showering down on a lake. Hundreds and thousands of arrows were released towards Arjuna, like hordes of bees descending on flowering trees in a forest. Subahu pierced and penetrated Sabyasachi's diadem, and 30 arrows that were hard as with 30 arrows that were hard as rock. Those gold-tufted arrows stuck to Kiriti's diadem, and he looked like a sacrificial post decorated with gold. In the encounter, Pandava used a broad-headed arrow to sever Subahu's arm guard and enveloped him with a shower of arrows. Shusharma, Suratha, Sudharma, Sudhanu, and Subahu pierced Kiriti with 10 arrows each, but the one with the monkey on his banner countered each of them separately with arrows. He pierced them back and severed their golden standards with broad-headed arrows. Having sliced down Sudhanu's bow, he killed his horses with arrows. Then he severed his helmeted head from his body. When that brave one was brought down, his followers were terrified. In fear, they fled towards Duryodhana's army. Vasava's son was extremely angry and slaughtered that large army with his net of arrows, like the sun rays dispelling darkness. The army was shattered and fled in different directions. Sabyasachi was overcome with great rage, and the Trigartas were overcome with fear. They were slaughtered by Partha's straight-tufted arrows. They remained there, bereft of their senses, like frightened herd of deer. The angry king of Trigartas spoke to the Maharatas. "Oh, brave ones, do not run away. You should not be overcome by fear. You pledged and took a terrible oath before all the soldiers. Having gone there, what will you tell the foremost ones among Duryodhana's soldiers? For this deed of ours in this battle will not be ridiculed in this world. All of us should unite and return to our respective divisions." O king, having been thus addressed, those brave ones repeatedly blew on their conch shells and gladdened each other. Masses of Shamshaptakas returned again, like the Narayana cowherds that have returned to their death. Footnote. This is a reference to the incidents recounted in section 49, volume 4, when both Duryodhana and Arjuna had solicited Krishna's help. Arjuna had opted for the unarmed Krishna, and Duryodhana for the cowherds known as Narayana soldiers. The Narayana soldiers are partly being equated with the Shamshaptakas. End of footnote. And now I've done the terrible thing of losing where I am. Oh, yeah. Chapter 995, part 18. Sanjaya said, on seeing the Samsaptika army return again, Arjuna spoke to the great-souled Vasudeva. O Rishikesh, drive the horses towards the army of the Samsaptakas. They will not return alive from the battle. That is my view. Today you will witness the terrible strength of my weapons and my arms. I will bring them down like an angry Rudra against animals. Hearing this, Krishna smiled and addressed him with auspicious words. The Invincible One conveyed Arjuna to the spot where he desired to go. They were radiant on a chariot drawn by white horses, and because of this seemed to cause a loss of the senses, like the Vimana that had risen in the sky. The chariot performed circular motions. It moved forwards and back. O king, it was like Shakra's chariot in the battle between the gods and the Asuras in ancient times. The angry Narayanas raised different kinds of weapons in their hands. They surrounded Dhananjaya and enveloped him with a storm of arrows. O bull among the Bharata lineage, in that battle they made Dhananjaya, Kunti's son, invisible, together with Krishna. In that encounter, Falguna became wrathful and showed double his valor. In that battle, he grasped the Gandiva and touched its string. There were frowns on his forehead, a sign of rage. Pandava blew on the great conch shell, Devadatta. Arjuna resorted to the weapon known as Twastra, which was capable of destroying large numbers of the enemy at the same time. Many thousands of separate forms appeared. Confused by these many different forms, they began to kill each other. Thinking each other to be Arjuna, they began to kill each other. This is Arjuna. This is Govinda. These are the Yadavas and Pandava. These are the Yadava and Pandava. They were confused, and speaking in this way, they killed each other in that battle. They were confused by that supreme weapon and destroyed each other in this way. In that battle, the warriors were as beautiful as flowering kingshukas. The thousands of arrows released by those brave ones were reduced by that weapon to ashes, and it conveyed them to Yama's abode. Bibatsu laughed and used his arrows to shatter the Lalita, Mallava, Mechalaka, and Trigarta warriors. Those brave Kshatriyas were propelled by destiny. They were slaughtered and released many different arrows, of showers of arrows towards Partha. Shrouded by that terrible shower of arrows, Arjuna, Keshava, all the chariot could no longer be seen there. On seeing that the arrows had found their mark, they told each other in great delight, Krishna and Arjuna have been killed. They waved their garments in the air. The brave ones sounded thousands of drums, tambourines, and conch shells. O venerable one, they emitted terrible roars like lions. Krishna was covered in sweat and was exhausted. He told Arjuna, O Partha, where are you? I cannot see you. O slayer of enemies, are you alive? He who knows all sentiments thus adopted human sentiments. On discerning this, Pandava swiftly used the Vayavya weapon and dispelled that shower of arrows. The illustrious Vayu created a storm that blew away the Shamshaptakas with their horses, elephants, chariots, and weapons, as if they were heaps of dry leaves. O king, as they were borne away by the wind, they looked beautiful. O venerable one, they were like birds flying away from trees at the right time, such as dawn. End of footnote. Having afflicted them in this way, Dhananjaya swiftly killed hundreds and thousands of them with his sharp arrows. He used broad-headed arrows to sever their heads and their arms, still grasping weapons. He used his arrows to bring down thighs that were like trunks of elephants. Some wounded on their backs, others lost their legs, or others their heads, eyes, and fingers. Dhananjaya deprived their bodies of many limbs. Their many chariots looked like the cities of Gandharvas. He shattered them, and the horses, chariots, and elephants with his arrows. With the standards brought down, some of those groups of chariots looked like forests of palm trees with the heads lopped off. There were elephants with excellent weapons, standards, goads, and warriors. They were brought down like wooden mountains struck with Chakra's Vajra. There were horses with tails like whisks and armored riders. Wounded by Partha's arrows, they fell down on the ground with their entrails and eyes plucked out. Foot soldiers held swords that looked like nails, but these dropped from their hand and their armor was shattered. Their inner organs were mangled. They were killed and whirled around. They fell and were falling down. Because of this, the field of battle looked terrible. A great cloud of dust had arisen and was now pacified by the shower of blood. Strewn with many headless torsos, the ground became difficult to cross. In that battle, Bibatsu's chariot was fierce and radiant. He sported around like Rudra, slaughtering animals at the time of destruction. Killed by Partha, the horses, chariots, and elephants became anxious, but they continued to rush at him like guests visiting Chakra. O foremost among the Bharata lineage, the ground was strewn with many slain Maharathas. With all of them lying there, it looked like the world of dead spirits. While Savyasati was thus furiously engaged, Drona and his battle formations attacked Yudhishthira. There were many ones in arrays, and they were swiftly attacked so as to capture Yudhishthira. There was a great and tumultuous encounter. Who wants to carry on? Matua, you don't have the book. Oh, here's Kanan. You know where you are?
No, what page?
Page 548, chapter 996.
Okay, I'll carry on.
Very good.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sanjaya said, O king, when the night had passed, Bharadwaja's Mahabharata son spoke to King Suddhodana. I have made arrangements for the masses of some Shaptakas to be engaged with Partha. When Partha had left battle with the Shaptakas and killed them, Drona and his battle formation advanced against the great army of the Pandavas. O best of the Bharata lineage, he advanced, wishing to capture Dharmaraj. On seeing that Bharadwaja's son had arranged his vyuha in the form of a Garuda, Yudhishthira created a counter-vyuha that was in the form of a half-circle. Bharadwaja's son, Maratha's son was himself stationed in the mouth of the Suparna. King Duryodhan was at the head with his brothers and followers. Kritivarma and the supremely radiant Gautama were the eyes. Bhuttavarma, Kshema Sharma, the valiant Karakarsha, Kalingas, Simhalas, those from the east, brave Abidas, Dasherakas, Shakas, Yavanas, Kambojas, Hamsapadas, Shurasenas, Daladas, Madras, and Kekayas, with hundreds and thousands of elephants, horses, chariots, and infantry, were stationed at the neck. Rudishrava, Shala, Shalya, Somadatta, and Balika. These brave ones were surrounded by one Akshuhini and resorted to the right flank. Vinda and Anuvinda from Avanti and Sudakshina from Cambodia were stationed on the left flank, with Drona's son stationed at the forefront. Kalingas, Ambashtas, Magadhas, Paundras, Madrakas, Gandharas, Shakunis, those from the eastern regions, those from the mountainous regions, and the Vastayas were at the rear. Bhai-Kartakarna, with his sons, kin, and relatives, was at the tail, surrounded by a large army that raised many different kinds of standards. Jayadratha, Vimarata, Samyati, Trixhaba, Jaya, Bhuminjaya, Vrisha, Krata, and the immensely strong Naishadha were surrounded by a large army and placed the world of Brahma as the objective. O king, they were skilled in war and placed themselves in the center of the Vyuha. The Vyuha constructed by Drona had foot soldiers, horses, chariots, and elephants. It was seen to be as turbulent as an ocean lashed by a storm. Those wishing to do battle emerged from its flanks and its sides. They were like clouds tinged with lightning, emerged in all the directions during summer. O king, Pragyotisha, was resplendent in the midst, astride an elephant that had been properly prepared. He looked like the rising sun. The king was adorned with garlands, and a white umbrella was above his head. He looked like the full moon in conjunction with the Kritika. Footnote for Kritika, the third of the 27 nakshatras, Pleiades. End of footnote. The elephant was blind with madness and was like a gigantic mountain on which clouds were showering down. It looked like a mass of collyrium. He was surrounded by many. This is Bhagadatta. He was surrounded by many brave kings from the mountainous regions, adorned with diverse weapons, and was like Shakra surrounded by masses of gods. Yudhishthira saw that superhuman Vyuha, incapable of being vanquished by enemies in battle. He spoke these words to Parshata. O Lord, your horses have the complexion of pigeons. Determine a policy so that I am not captured today by the Brahmana. Drishtadyumna replied. There's a footnote for this. Complexion of pigeons, meaning they are white, and a footnote. All right. So Drishtadyumna replied, O one who is excellent in vows, no matter how hard Drona tries, he will not be able to bring you under his control. I will check Drona today, together with his followers. O Kauravya, as long as I am alive, you should not be anxious. Drona will never be able to defeat me in battle. Having said this, Drupada's powerful son, with horses that had the hue of pigeons, released arrows and himself attacked Drona. On seeing the evil omen of Drishtadyumna stationed before him, Drona instantly became distressed. Footnote, Drishtadyumna was destined to kill Drona. End of footnote. On seeing this, your son, Dunmukha, the destroyer of enemies, wished to do that which would bring pleasure to Drona and countered Drishtadyumna. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, a terrible battle raged between the brave Parshata and Durmukha. They were each other's equal. Parshata swiftly enveloped Durmukha with a net of arrows and countered Bharadwaja's son with a great shower of arrows. On seeing that Drona had been sorely countered, your son confounded Parshata with a shower of many different kinds of arrows. While the one from Panchala and the foremost among the Kurus were thus engaged in battle, Drona killed many of Yudhishthir's soldiers with arrows. They were routed in diverse directions like clouds by the wind. Partha's soldiers were thus scattered. For a short while, the encounter seemed to be pleasant, O king, but it then became violent, and no consideration was shown to anyone. O king, as they fought each other, they could not distinguish friend from foe. The battle raged on, and on the basis of guessing and signs. The rays of the sun reflected on the gems on headdresses, necklaces, ornaments, swords, and shields. They assumed the complexion of the sun. The chariots, elephants, and horses streamed banners and seemed to assume the form of clouds with flocks of cranes in them. Men killed men, horses fiercely killed horses, charioteers killed charioteers, and elephants killed supreme elephants. In a short instant, there was a terrible and fierce encounter between elephants and other supreme elephants, all bedecked with pennants. As they rubbed their bodies against each other and clashed against each other with their tusks, flames tinged with smoke arose from the friction. Because of the fire generated from the tusks, the standards were brought down. They looked like masses of resplendent clouds in the sky tinged with lightning. The earth was strewn with elephants that roared as they were brought down, like clouds shrouding the autumn sky. The elephants were slaughtered with showers of arrows and javelins, and roared like clouds during a deluge. Some supreme elephants were struck with arrows and javelins and were terrified. Others shrieked and fled, frightening all beings. Some elephants were wounded by the tusks of other elephants. They roared in tones of woe, like clouds at the time of a terrible calamity. Some elephants were driven back by other supreme elephants, but urged by excellent goads, they returned to the battle. Elephant riders struck elephant riders with arrows and javelins, with weapons and goads dislodged. They fell down from the backs of elephants to the ground. Many elephants were bereft of their riders and wandered in different directions. They fell down when they encountered each other like scattered clouds. They bore slain drivers and the best of warriors. Those giant elephants wandered in all the directions, as if they were solitary. Some elephants were attacked. Others were attacked with javelins, swords, and battle axes. They uttered roars of distress and fell down. Bodies that were like mountains fell down suddenly. The earth was suddenly struck and quaked and seemed to be shrieking. The earth was strewn in every direction with warriors, elephant riders, pennants, and elephants, and was beautiful, as if it was covered with hills. In that battle, elephant riders on elephants were pierced in their hearts. Charioteers were brought down with broad-headed arrows, and lances and goads were strewn around. Other elephants were wounded with iron arrows and shrieked like cranes. They fled in the 10 directions, crushing foes and friends. O king, the earth was covered with masses of elephants, horses, charioteers, and their bodies, and the slush of flesh and blood. Chariots with wheels and without wheels, and with the Maharatas were uprooted by elephants with the tips of their tusks. Chariots were bereft of charioteers, and elephants were bereft of riders. With their riders slain, horses and elephants fled in different directions, afflicted by the arrows. The father killed the son, and the son killed the father. In that tumultuous battle, nothing could be distinguished. In that slush of blood, men sank down up to their ankles. They were as dazzling as giant trees in a conflagration. The garments, armor, umbrellas, and standards were all seen to be drenched red in blood. Masses of horses, masses of chariots, and masses of men were brought down. They were again crushed into many pieces by the wheels of chariots. The soldiers were like an ocean. The masses of elephants were the mighty currents. The slain men were the moss. The masses of chariots were eddies. Desiring victory and prosperity, warriors immersed themselves in that ocean, using their mounts as large boats, and sought to confound the others. Each of those warriors was covered with a shower of arrows, but did not deviate from the objective. Though they lost their signs, they did not lose heart. In that terrible and fearful battle, Drona confounded the enemy and rushed towards Yudhishthira. Chapter 997, Part 20. Sanjaya said, I'll read there's a couple of more short chapters here. I'll read 1 and 2. I'll read till chapter 999 in Debroy's, which is 2 chapters. So, chapter 997. Sanjay said, on seeing that Drona was near him, Yudhishthira was not frightened, but received him with a mighty shower of arrows. Sounds of applause arose in Yudhishthira's army, like that made by a herd of elephants when its leader is attacked by a lion. On seeing that Drona was advancing to capture Yudhishthira, the brave Satyajit, with truth as his valor, attacked the preceptor. The preceptor and Panchala fought against each other. They agitated each other's soldiers like Indra and Virochana's son. Footnote, Virochana's son is Bali. The footnote. The preceptor swiftly pierced Satyajit with 10 sharp arrows that penetrated the inner organs and severed his bow and arrows. The powerful one quickly grasped another bow and struck Drona with 20 arrows shafted with the feathers of herons. On learning that Satyajit had been grasped by Drona in the battle, Vrika from Panchala oppressed Drona with hundreds of sharp arrows. O king, on seeing that Drona was enveloped by the Mahabharata in the battle, the Pandavas roared and waved their garments around. O king, extremely enraged, the powerful Vrika pierced Drona between the breasts with 60 arrows, and it was extraordinary. Mahabharata Drona dilated his eyes in rage. Using great force, he powerfully shrouded them with showers of arrows. Having severed the bows of Satyajit and Vrika, Drona killed Vrika, his charioteer, and his horses with 6 arrows. Satyajit took up another bow that was more powerful and pierced Drona, his horses, his charioteer, and his standard with arrows. Drona could not tolerate this oppression by Panchala in that battle. He released arrows so as to quickly destroy him. Drona shot thousands of showers of arrows to envelop his horses, his standards, the handle of his bow, and his Parshni charioteers. Despite his bow being repeatedly severed, Panchala, who knew about supreme weapons, continued to fight. The one with the red horses, that's Drona. On witnessing Satyajit's increasing energy in that great battle, the great-souled one sliced off his head with an arrow that was in the shape of a crescent. When the mighty warrior, the Panchala, who was a bull among Ratas, was slain, Yudhishthira became frightened of Drona and fled on swift horses. On seeing Drona, the Panchalas, Kekayas, Matsyas, Chedis, Karushas, and Kosalas wished to protect Yudhishthira and cheerfully attacked. The preceptor, destroyer of large numbers of the enemy, wished to capture Yudhisthira. He slew those soldiers like a fire consuming large masses of cotton. On witnessing that Drona was repeatedly consuming the soldiers, Shatanika, the younger brother of Matsya, attacked him. He severely pierced Drona, his charioteer, and his horses with 6 arrows that were like the rays of the sun, and had been polished by artisans, and roared. While he was thus roaring, Drona swiftly sliced off his head, adorned with earrings, from his body with a shurapra. At this, the Matsyas fled. Having defeated the Matsyas, Bharadwaja's son repeatedly vanquished the Chedis, Karushas, Kikayas, Panchalas, Srinjayas, and Pandus. On beholding the angry one on the golden chariot, consuming the soldiers, in his rage, like a fire in a forest, the Srinjayas trembled. The one who was swift in his deeds drew his bowstring, and the excellent sound of the twang was heard in all the directions as he slaughtered the enemy. The terrible arrows released from his hands mangled elephants, horses, infantry, charioteers, and elephant riders. He was like a roaring cloud at the end of winter, mingled with the wind, pouring down a shower of hailstones, and the enemy was frightened. The great archer, powerful and brave, the one who protected his enemies from fear, roamed around in all the directions, causing agitation and fright. The infinitely energetic Drona's bow was decorated with gold and looked like lightning flashing in the clouds. It was seen in all the directions. Drona caused great carnage among the Pandava soldiers, like that caused by Vishnu, revered by the gods and asuras among the masses of Daityas. He was brave and truthful in speech. He was wise and powerful. Truth was his valor. He was noble-minded. He created a terrible river, like the one at the time of destruction, terrifying to cowards. Armor was the waves, standards were the eddies. It flowed and carried away the mortals. Elephants and horses were the giant crocodiles. The swords were fish, and it was difficult to cross. This is this river that Drone has created. The bones of brave ones were its terrible stones. Drums and tambourines were the turtles. Shields and armor were the terrible boats. The hair was moss and weeds. Masses of arrows and bows were the current. It was full of serpents in the form of arms. Footnote, the severed arms of warriors, end of footnote. It flowed fiercely through the field of battle and bore along the soldiers of the Kurus and the Srinjayas. The heads of men were the boulders, javelins were the fish, and clubs were rafts. The headdresses were the foam on the surface, the disemboweled entrails were the reptiles. It was fierce, and bore brave ones away. The flesh and the blood was the mud, the elephants were the crocodiles, the standards were the trees. Kshatriyas were submerged in it. It was terrible and congested with bodies. The riders were the sharks, and it was difficult to cross. Drona created a river there, and it flowed to the world of the dead. It was full of large numbers of carrion eaters, and had tens of thousands of dogs and jackals. In every direction, it was frequented by extremely fierce flesh-eaters. On seeing that the great Rata was consuming the soldiers, like death, they attacked Drona from all sides, with Kunti's son at the forefront. Those on your side, the kings and the princes, raised their weapons and surrounded the brave and great archer. Drona never deviated in his aim and was like an elephant with a shattered temple. He overcame that mass of chariots and brought down Dridasen. He approached King Kshema, who was fighting fearlessly, and piercing him with 9 arrows, slew and felled him from his chariot. He penetrated the midst of the soldiers, and roaming around repulsed them in every direction. He protected all the others, but he himself had no need for protection. He pierced Shikhandi with 12, and Untamuja with 20 arrows. With a broad-headed arrow he sent Vasudana to Yama's abode. He struck Shatravarma with 80 arrows and Sudakshina with 26. With a broad-headed arrow he brought Kshatradeva down from the seat of his chariot. He pierced Yudamanyu with 64 arrows and Satyaki with 30. The one on the golden chariot then quickly approached Yudhisthira. The deceitful Yudhisthira, supreme among kings, swiftly fled on fast horses. Footnote on the deceitful, because he did not stay to fight. End of footnote. Panchala attacked him, but Drona struck him. Footnote, this particular Panchala is not named. End of footnote. But Drona struck him, his bow, his horses, and his charioteer. Slain, he fell down on the ground from his chariot, like a stellar body dropping down from the sky. When that illustrious prince of Panchala was killed, there was a great and tumultuous sound of "Kill Drona! Kill Drona!" The Panchalas, Matsyas, and Kekayas were filled with great rage. However, the powerful Drona crushed the Srinjayas and the Pandavas. Satyaki, Chekitana, Drishtadyumna, Shikhandi, Shemi, Chitrasena, Senna-Bindu, Suvarchas, these and many other kings from many different countries were all vanquished in that battle by Drona, who was surrounded by the Kurus. O great king, those on your side obtained victory in that great battle. As the Pandavas fled in all directions, they were slaughtered in that battle, like the Danavas being slaughtered by the great-souled Indra. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the Panchalas, Kekayas, and Matsyas trembled. That's the end of that chapter. The next chapter is chapter 998, but if someone else could carry on reading, that would be very nice. I know I said I'd read one more, but I can't.
Dina, are you ready?
Is Mark ready? I'm making roti.
Mark? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Mark?
Oh, Mark. Okay.
Well, I'll just read one more then.
Yeah, you have to read one more because no one's responding.
Ready? Yeah. All right. Who else is there? Just as okay. All right.
Chapter 998. Dhritarashtra asked, when the Pandavas were routed by Bharadwaja's son in that great battle, did anyone among all the Panchalas advance against him? Was there no noble one who wished to earn fame, as befits a Kshatriya, and set his mind on fighting? He should not have been served by cowards. He should have been served by bulls among men. It must have been a brave man and charioteer who returned from that rout. On seeing that Drona was stationed, was there no such man? He was like a tiger with a yawning mouth. He was like an elephant with a shattered temple. He was prepared to give up his life in battle. He was armored and was wonderful in fighting. He was a great archer. He was a tiger among men. He increased fear among his enemies. He was grateful and devoted to the truth. He was engaged in Duryodhana's welfare. O Sanjay, on seeing that Bharadwaja's brave son was stationed in that army, which brave ones advanced against him? Tell me. Sanjay replied, on seeing that the Pandavas Matsyas, Srinjayas, Chedis, and Kekayas were driven away from the battle by Drona's arrows. The Kauravas roared like lions and sounded many musical instruments. Large numbers of arrows were swiftly released from Drona's bow, and they were like shattered boats tossed around on the giant waves of the ocean. They is the Pandavas. In that sentence, Drona's bow and they, the Pandavas, were like shattered boats tossed around on the great giant waves of the ocean. They surrounded the chariots, elephants, and men from all the directions. That is, the Kauravas surrounded the Pandavas. King Duryodhana was stationed in the midst of his soldiers, surrounded by his relatives. On seeing them, he laughed and spoke these words of joy to Karna. "O Radeya, behold, the Panchalas have been shattered by Drona's arrows. They have been terrified by the wielder of the firm bow, like wild deer by a lion. It is my view that they will never return to fight again. They have been broken by Drona, like giant trees by a tempest. They have been consumed by the gold-tufted arrows of the great Soul One. They are fleeing through multiple routes and seem to be whirled around. They have been confined by the Kauravas and the great-souled Drona. They are like elephants huddled together because of a fire, because of Drona's sharp arrows. They are like a cluster of bees. They are huddling together and are trying to run away. Bhima is firm in his anger, but he has been abandoned by the Pandavas and the Srinjayas. O Karna, surrounded by those on my side, he seeks to threaten us. Evil-minded one now sees the entire world as if it is full of Drona. Pandava has now lost all hope of remaining alive and of regaining the kingdom. Karna said, "As long as there is life left in him, this mighty armed one will never give up the battle, O tiger among men, nor will he tolerate these roars like lions. It is my view that the Pandavas have not been defeated in battle. They are brave and powerful. They are skilled in the use of weapons and are invincible in war. The Pandavas will remember the hardships from poisoning, arson, gambling, and dwelling in the forest. It is my view that they will not retreat from the battle. The mighty armed and infinitely energetic Rikodara has already returned. This Konteya is a supreme among the best, and he will kill the best of our Ratas. With a sword, bow, javelin, horses, elephants, men, chariots, and an iron staff, he will slay large numbers. Other Ratas, Satyaki, and the others are also returning after him. The Panchalas, Kekayas, and Matsyas, and particularly the Pandavas. Those Maharatas are brave, powerful, and valiant. They are enraged and are being specially urged by Bhima. The bulls among the Kurus have surrounded Drona from all sides, wishing to protect Vrikodara. They are like clouds from the around the sun. But no. The bulls among the Kurus, the footnote there was meaning the Pandavas, have surrounded Drona from all sides. Wishing to protect Vrikodara, they are like clouds around the sun. They are united in their purpose and will oppress the one who is rigid in his vows and is unprotected. They are like insects on the point of death around a lamp. There is no doubt that they are skilled in the use of weapons and are capable of countering him. I think that the burden on Bharadwaja's son will be too much to bear. Let us quickly go to the spot where Drona is stationed. They are seeking to slay the one who is rigid in his vows, like wolves around a mighty elephant. Sanjaya said, "O king," hearing Radeya's words, King Duryodhana left towards Drona's chariot, together with his brothers. A great uproar was created there by the Pandavas. who had returned, wishing to kill Drona. They were on supreme horses with diverse hues. It's the end of chapter 998. Anyone else?
Thank you, Kanai. That was wonderful.
Thanks.
I've got a camera, I've got a book.
That'll be section 23. Is it, Dina, for you?
Dhritarashtra said, "Tell me, O Sanjaya, the distinctive indications of the castes of all those who."
I think that's right.
Yeah, I was following.
You were? Okay, great.
So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dhritarashtra said, "Tell me, O Sanjay, the distinctive indications of the cars of all those who, excited with wrath and headed by Bhimashen, have proceeded against Drona." Sanjaya said, "Beholding Vrikodara advancing on a car drawn by steeds of dappled hue, like that of the antelope, the brave grandson of Sini, Satyaki, proceeded, borne by steeds of a silvery hue. The irresistible Yudamanyu, excited with rage, proceeded against Drona, borne by excellent steeds of variegated hue. Drishtajumna, the son of the Panchala king, proceeded, borne by steeds of great fleetness in trappings of gold and of the hue of pigeons. Desirous of protecting his sire and wishing him complete success, Dhritarashtra's son, Shatradhaman, of regulated vows, proceeded, borne by red steeds. Shatradev, the son of Sikandin, himself urging well-decked steeds of the hue of lotus leaves and with eyes of pure white, proceeded against Drona. Beautiful steeds of the Kamboj breed, decked with the feathers of the green parrot, bearing Nakula, quickly ran towards thy army. Dark steeds of the clouds wrathfully bore Utamaujas, O Bharat, to battle against the invincible Drona, standing with arrows aimed. Steeds, fleet as the wind and of variegated hue, bore Sahadev with upraised weapons to that fierce battle. Of great impetuosity and possessed of the fleetness of the wind, steeds of the ivory hue and having black manes on their neck bore Yudhisthira, that tiger among men. And many warriors followed Yudhisthira, borne on their steeds, decked in trappings of gold and all fleet as the wind. Behind the king was the royal chief of the Panchalas, Drupad, with a golden umbrella over his head and himself protected by those soldiers that followed Yudhisthira. That great bowman among all kings, Sotabi, proceeded borne by beautiful steeds, capable of bearing every noise. Accompanied by all the great car warriors, Virata quickly followed the former. The Kaikeyis and Sikandin and Drishtaketu, surrounded by their respective troops, followed the ruler of the Matsyas. Excellent steeds of the pale red hue of trumpet flowers looked exceedingly beautiful as they bore Virata. Fleet steeds of yellow colour and decked in chains of gold bore with great speed the son of Uttara, of that slayer of foes, Virata, the royal chief of the Matsyas. The 5 Kekaya brothers were borne by steeds of deep red hue, of the splendor of gold and owning standards of the red hue, and decked with chains of gold, all of them heroes accomplished in battle. They proceeded, clad in mail and showering arrows like the very clouds. Excellent steeds, the gift of Tumvuru, of the hue of unbaked earthen pots, bore Sikandin and Panchala, prince of immeasurable energy. Altogether, 12,000 mighty car warriors of the Panchala race proceeded to battle. Of these, 6,000 followed Sikandin. Sportive steeds, O sire, of the dappled hue of the antelope, bore the son of Shishupal, that tiger among men. That bull among the Chades, Drishtaketu, endued with great strength, and, difficult of being vanquished in battle, proceeded, borne by Cambodia steeds of variegated hue. Excellent steeds of the Sindhu breed, of beautiful limbs and of the hue of the smoke of straw, quickly bore the Kaikeyi prince, Brihat Shatra. Possessed of eyes of pure white, of the hue of the lotus, born in the country of the Valhikas, and decked with ornaments, bore Sikandi's son, the brave Shatradev. Decked in trappings of gold and possessed of the hue of red silk, quiet steeds bore Sena Bindu, that chastiser of foes, to battle. Excellent steeds of the hue of cranes bore to battle the youthful and delicate son of the king of Kashis, that mighty car warrior. White steeds with black necks, endued with the speed of mind, O monarch, and exceedingly obedient to the driver, bore Prince Prativindya. Whitish yellow steeds bore Suta Soma, the son of Arjuna, whom by the latter had obtained from Soma himself. He was born in the Kuru city known by the name of Udayendu, endued with effulgence of 1,000 moons, and because he also had won great renown in an assembly of the Somakas, he came to be called Sutasoma. Steeds of the hue of Sala flowers, or the morning sun, bore Nakul's sons, Satanika, worthy of every praise. Steeds decked in trappings of gold and endued with the hue of a peacock's neck bore that tiger among men, Shrutakaman, the son of Draupadi, by Bhima. Excellent steeds of the hue of the kingfishers bore Draupadi's son, Shrutakirti, to that battle, who, like Partha, was an ocean of learning. Steeds of a tawny hue bore the youthful Abhimanyu, who was regarded as superior to Krishna or Partha 1.5 times in battle. Gigantic steeds bore Yuyutsu to battle, that only warrior amongst the sons of Dhritarashtra, who, abandoning his brothers, have sided with the Pandavas. Plump and well-decked steeds of the hue of the dried paddy stalk bore Vardakashami in great activity to that dreadful battle. Steeds with black legs, equipped in breastplates of gold and exceedingly obedient to the driver, bore youthful Sochiti to battle. Steeds whose backs were covered with golden armor, decked with chains of gold, well broken and of the hue of red silk, bore Shrenimat. Steeds of a red hue bore the advancing Satyadriti, accomplished in the science of arms and in the divine Vedas. That Panchala, who was commander of the Pandava army and who took Drona as the victim, allotted his share. That Drishtajumna was borne by steeds of hue of pigeons. Him followed Satyadriti and Sochiti, irresistible in battle, and Shrenimat and Vasudhana and Vibhu, the son of the ruler of the Kashis. These had fleet steeds of the best Kamboj breed, decked with chains of gold, each resembling Yama or Vaishravana. They proceeded to battle, striking fear into the hearts of the hostile soldiers. The Prabhadrakas of the Kamboj country, numbering 6,000, with upraised weapons, with excellent steeds of diverse hues on their gold-decked cars, with stretched bows and making their foes tremble with their showers of arrows, and resolved to die together, followed Drishtajumna. Excellent steeds of the hue of tawny silk, decked with beautiful chains of gold, cheerfully bore Chekitana, Arjuna's maternal uncle Purujit, otherwise called Kuntiboja, came borne by excellent steeds of the colour of the rainbow. Steeds of the colour of star-bespangled firmament bore to battle King Rochamana. Steeds of the hue of the red deer, white with streaks over their bodies, bore the Panchala prince, Singhasena, the son of Gopati. That tiger among the Panchalas, who is known by the name of Janamejaya, had excellent steeds of the hue of mustard flowers. Fleet, gigantic, and dark blue, steeds decked with chains of gold, with backs of the hue of curd and faces of the hue of the moon, bore with great speed the ruler of the Panchalas. Brave steeds with beautiful heads, white as the stalks of reeds, and a splendour resembling that of the firmament of the lotus, bore Dandara. Light brown steeds with backs of the hue of the moose, and with necks proudly drawn up, bore Vyagradata to battle. Dark spotted steeds bore that tiger among men, Sudanwan, the prince of Panchala, of fierce impetuosity resembling that of Indra's thunder, beautiful steeds of the hue of Indragopakas with variegated patches bore Chitrayudha. Decked with golden chains, steeds whose bellies were of the hue of the Chakravaka bore Shukshatra, the son of the ruler of the Koshalas. Beautiful and tall steeds of variegated hue and gigantic bodies, exceedingly docile and decked with chains of gold, bore Satyadriti, accomplished in battle. Shukla advanced to battle with his standard and armour and bow and steeds, all of the same white hue. Steeds born on the sea coast and white as the moon bore Chandrasena of fierce energy, the son of the Samudrasena. Steeds of the hue of the blue lotus and decked with ornaments of gold and adorned with beautiful floral wreaths bore Shavya, owning a beautiful car, to battle. Superior steeds of the hue of Kalaya flowers with white and red streaks bore Ratashena, difficult of being resisted in battle. White steeds bore that king who slew the Patacharas, who is regarded as the bravest of men. Superior steeds of the hue of Kinsuk flowers bore Chitrayudha, decked with beautiful garlands and owning beautiful armour and weapons and standard. King Nila advanced to battle with standard and armour and bow and banner and steeds of all the same blue colour. Chitra advanced to battle with car fence, and standard and bow all decked with the diverse kinds of gems, and beautiful steeds and banner. Excellent steeds of the hue of the lotus bore Hemavarna, the son of Rochamana. Chargers capable of bearing all kinds of weapons, of brave achievements in battle, possessed of vertebral columns of the hue of reeds, having white testicles, and endued with the colour of the hen's egg, bore Danda Ketu. The mighty Sarangadwaj, endued with wealth of energy, the king of the Pandyas, on steeds of the hue of the moon's rays, and decked with armour set with stones of lapis lazuli, advanced upon Drona, stretching his excellent bow. His country having been invaded, and his kinsmen having fled, his father had been slain by Krishna in battle. Obtaining weapons then from Bhishma and Drona, Ram and Kripa, Prince Sarangodwaj became, in weapons, the equal of Rukmi and Karna and Arjuna and Achyuta. He then desired to destroy the city of Dwarka and subjugate the whole world. Wise friends, however, from desire of doing him good, counselled him against that course. Giving up all thoughts of revenge, he is now ruling his own dominions. Steeds that were all of the hue of the Atrusa flower bore 140,000 principal car warriors that followed Sarangadwaj, the king of the Pandyas. Steeds of diverse hues and diverse kinds of forces bore the heroic Gotakuch, mighty steeds of gigantic size, of the Arata breed, bore the mighty armed Vrihanta of red eyes, mounted on his golden car, that prince who, rejecting the opinions of all the Bharatas, hath singly from his reverence from Yudhisthira. They're missing a. Gone over to him, abandoning all his cherished desire. Should have been a comma there. Superior steeds of the hue of gold followed that foremost of kings. The virtuous Yudhisthira is back. Large number of Prabhadrakas of celestial shapes advanced to battle with steeds of diverse, excellent colours. All of them, owning standards of gold and prepared to struggle vigorously, proceeded with Bhimashen and wore the aspect, O monarch, of the Denzians of heaven, with Indra at their head. That assembled host of Prabhadrakas was much liked by Drishtajumna, Bharadwaja's son. However, O monarch, surpassed all the warriors in splendour. His standard, with a black deerskin waving on its top and the beautiful water pot, O monarch, that it bore looked exceedingly beautiful. And Bhimashen the standard, bearing the device of a gigantic lion in silver, with its eyes made of lapis lazuli, looked exceedingly resplendent. The standard of Yudhisthira of great energy, bearing the device of a golden moon with planets around it, looked very beautiful. Two large and beautiful kettle drums called Nanda and Upananda were tied to it. Played upon by the machinery, these produced excellent music that enhanced the delight of all who heard it. For, terrifying the foe, we beheld that tall and fierce standard of Nakula, placed on his car, bearing the device of a Saraba with its back made of gold. A beautiful silver swan with bells and banner terrible to look at and, enhancing the grief of the foe, was seen on Sahadev's standard. The standards of the 5 sons of Draupadi bore on them the excellent images of Dharma, Marut, Sakra, and the twin Ashwins. On the car, O king, of the youthful Abhimanyu was an excellent standard that bore a golden peacock, which was bright as heated gold. On Gotakacha's standard, O king, a vulture shone brightly, and his steeds also were capable of going everywhere at will, like those of Ravana in days of yore. In Yudhisthira's hands was a celestial bow called Mahindra, and in the hands of Bhimashen, O king, was the celestial bow called Vayavya. For the protection of the three worlds, Brahman created a bow. That celestial and indestructible bow was held by Falguni. The Vaishnava bow was held by Nakula, and the bow called Ashwina was held by Sahadev. That celestial and terrible bow called the Palastya was held by Gotakuch. The 5 jewels of bows borne by the fire of the sons of Draupadi were Rodra, the Agneya, the Kovarya, the Yamya, and the Girisha. That excellent and best of bows called the Rodra, which Rohini's son Baladev had obtained, the latter gave unto the high-souled son of Subhadra, having been gratified with him. These and many other standards decked with gold were seen there, belonging to brave warriors, all of which enhanced the fear of their foes. The host commanded by Drona, which numbered not a single coward, and in which countless standards rising together seemed to obstruct the welkin, then looked, O monarch, like images on a canvas. We heard the names and lineage, O king, of brave warriors rushing towards Drona in that battle, like to what is heard, O monarch, at a self-choice. Have a look at that in the footnote. Then royal Drupad advanced against him at the head of a mighty division. The encounter between those 2 old men at the heads of their respective forces became terrible, like that between the two mighty leaders with rent temples of 2 elephantine herds. Oh. Okay, can't really manage to fathom anything from that. Vinda and Anuvinda of Avanti, with their troops encountered Virata, the ruler of the Matsyas, at the head of these forces, like Indra and Agni in days of old encountering the Asura Valley. That awful encounter between the Matsyas and the Kekayas, in which steeds and car warriors and elephants fought most fearlessly, resembled that between the gods and the Asuras in days of old. Bhuta Karman, otherwise called Shabapati, kept away from Drona. Nakul's son, Satanika, as the latter advanced, scattering showers of arrows. Then the heir of Nakula, with 3 broad-headed shafts of great sharpness, deprived Bhuta Karman of both his arms and head in that battle. Vivinsati resisted the heroic Sutasoma of great prowess, as the latter advanced towards Drona, scattering showers of arrows. Sutasoma, however, excited with wrath, pierced his uncle Vivinsati with straight arrows and cased in mail, stood ready for the combat. Bhimarata, brother of Duryodhana, with 6 sharp shafts of great swiftness, made wholly of iron, dispatched Salwa along with his steeds and charioteer to Yama's abode. Chitrasena's son, O king, opposed thy grandson, Shrutakarman, as the latter came borne by steeds, looking like peacocks. Those 2 grandsons of thine, both difficult of being vanquished in battle, and each desirous of slaying the other, fought vigorously for the success of the objects of their respective sires. Beholding Prativindya, staying at the van of that dreadful battle, Drona's son, Ashwatthama, desirous of protecting the honor of his sire, resisted the former with his shafts. Prativindya then, excited with rage, pierced Ashwatthama, bearing on his standard the device of the lion's tail, and staying in battle for the sake of his father with many sharp shafts. The eldest son of Draupadi then scattered over Drona's son showers of arrows like a sower, O bull among men, scattering seeds on the soil at the sowing season. The son of Dushashana resisted the mighty car warrior Shrutakirti, the son of Arjuna, by Draupadi, as the latter was rushing towards Drona. That son of Arjuna, however, who was equal to Arjuna himself, cutting off the former's bow and standard, and charioteer with 3 broad-headed arrows of great sharpness, proceeded against Drona. Duryodhana's son, Lakshmana, resisted the slayer of the Patacharas, him that is, O king, who is regarded by both the armies as the bravest of the brave. The latter, however, cutting off both the bow and the standard of Lakshmana, and showering upon him, resisted Sikandin, the youthful son of Yagnasena, as the latter advanced in that battle. Yagnasena's son then covered the former with showers of arrows. The mighty son of Vikarna, baffling those arrowy showers, looked resplendent on the field of battle. Angada resisted with showers of arrows the heroic Uttamojas in that battle, as the latter rushed towards Drona. That encounter between those 2 lions among men became frightful, and it filled both of them and the troops with great zeal. The great bowman, Durmukha, endued with great might, resisted with his shafts that heroic Purujit, as the latter proceeded towards Drona. Purujit struck Durmukha between his eyebrows with a long shaft. Thereupon, Durmukha's face looked beautiful like a lotus with its stalk. Karna resisted with showers of arrows the 5 Kakeya brothers, owning red standards as they proceeded towards Drona. Scorched with the arrowy showers of Karna, those 5 brothers covered Karna with their arrows. Karna in return repeatedly covered them with showers of arrows. Covered with arrows, neither Karna nor the 5 brothers could be seen with their steeds, charioteers, standards, and cars. The sons Durujaya, Jaya, and Vijaya resisted Nila, and the ruler of the Kashis and Jayatsena, 3 against. And the combat between those warriors deepened and gladdened the hearts of the spectators, like those between a lion, a tiger, and a wolf on the one side, and a bear and a buffalo, and a bull on the other. The brothers, Shemadurti and Vrihanta, mangled Satyaki of the Satvata race with their keen arrows, as the latter proceeded against Drona. The battle between those 2 on one side and Satyaki and the other became exceedingly wonderful to behold, like that between a lion and 2 mighty elephants with rent temples in the forest. The king of the Chadis, excited with wrath and shooting many warriors, kept away from Drona, King Ambasta, that hero who always delighted in battle. Then King Ambashta pierced his antagonist with a long arrow capable of penetrating into the very bones. Thereupon the latter, with bow and arrow loosened from his grasp, fell down from his car on the ground. The noble creeper, son of Saradwat, with many small arrows, resisted Vardakashemi of the Vrishni race, who was the embodiment of wrath in battle. They that looked at Creeper, son of Saradwat, with many small arrows, resisted Vardakshemi of the Vrishni race, who was the embodiment of wrath in battle. They that looked at Creeper and Vardakshemi, those heroes conversant with every mode of warfare, thus engaged in encountering each other, becoming so absorbed in that they could not attend to anything else. Somadatta's son, for enhancing the glory of Drona, resisted King Manimat of great activity as the latter came to fight. Then Manimat quickly cut off the bowstring, the standard, the banner, the charioteer and the umbrella of Somadatta's son, and caused them to fall down from the latter's car. Son of Somadatta, then, bearing the device of the sacrificial stake on his standard, that slayer of foes, quickly jumping down from his car, cut off with his large swords his antagonist with his steeds, charioteer, standard, and car. Reascending then upon his own car, and taking up another bow, and guiding his steeds himself, he began, O monarch, to consume the Pandava host. Vrihashena, the son of Karna, competent for the feat, resisted with showers of arrows King Pandava, who was rushing to battle like Indra himself, following the Asuras for smiting them. With maces and spiked bludgeons, and swords and axes and stones, short clubs and mallets and discs, short arrows and battle axes, with dust and wind, and fire and water, and ashes and brickbats, and straw and trees, afflicting and smiting, and breaking and slaying, and routing the foe, and hurling them onto the hostile ranks, and terrifying them therewith, came Gota Kuch, desirous of getting a Drona. The Rakshasha Alambusha, however, excited with rage, encountered him with diverse weapons and diverse accoutrements of war. And the battle that took place between those two foremost of Rakshashas resembled that which took place in days of old between Samvara and the chief of the Celestials. Thus blessed be thou took place hundreds of single combats between car warriors and elephants, and steeds and foot soldiers of thy army and theirs in the midst of the dreadful general engagement. Indeed, such a battle was never seen or heard of before as that which then took place between those warriors that were bent upon Drona's destruction and protection. Indeed, many were the encounters that were then seen on all parts of the field, some of which were terrible, some beautiful, and some exceedingly fierce, O Lord. Is there anybody else in the house would like to perhaps have the last reading for tonight?
Madan, is Mark or Madan? Hello?
Well, I'm there. I don't know if Mark's there or not.
I think you should, because he's not responding, I think you just need to keep the flow going.
Wow, what a battle.
Fantastic. That was very
Carnine, do you know where
dramatic.
you're up to in that?
Dramatic.
Carnine, did you follow that?
I wasn't following this time by reading along.
Mm.
Anyway, Madan, you're going to carry on now. You're going to
Why? If you want me to read.
No, I want to carry on, but I want to know from where. So,
Oh, sorry.
Gatotkacha came on, didn't he?
the two Asuras.
Yeah, Gatotkacha and Alambusha.
I mean, the two Rakshashas.
Yeah.
It's section XXV in Ganguli. Sanjaya said, "Thou ask of me about the feats of Arjuna in battle. Listen, O thou
Okay,
of my
so it starts with Sanjaya said.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
It's chapter 1003, the Mahabharata. And just get my picture.
Can we see you, Madan, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
There you are.
Okay, so chapter 1003, part 26. Sanjaya said, "You have asked me about the deeds performed by Partha in that battle." Is that right? Yeah. O great king, listen to what Partha accomplished in that battle. On seeing that a dust had arisen, and on hearing the roar of the elephant, when Bhagadatta caused subjugation, Kaunteya spoke to Krishna.
I'm sorry to
Oh,
interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you've missed out a chapter.
did I?
Yeah, there's one chapter before that one.
Okay, well done. Okay,
Sorry.
well, your one, it starts with Sanjaya, right, sir?
Where is it now?
Section 25.
It's no, it's the one before where it starts with Dhritarashtra said, when the troops were thus engaged.
Is it? So that's 24.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Dhritarashtra asked, chapter 1002. Or do you want to read, Mark, then, seeing as you're there?
I'm not in the right state to do that at the moment. I'm sorry to say.
Don't worry.
Sorry.
No worries. Dhritarashtra asked, when they had returned and engaged in different divisions, how did the spirited ones on the side of the Parthas and on mine fight? How did Arjuna act towards the army of the Samshaptakas? O Sanjaya, what did the Samshaptakas do to Arjuna? Sanjaya replied, when they had returned and engaged themselves in different divisions, your son himself attacked Bhima with an army of elephants. It was like an elephant encountering an elephant, or a bull encountering a bull. He was himself summoned and attacked by the king with that army of elephants. Oh, Partha was skilled in fighting and possessed the strength of his arms. O venerable one, he swiftly shattered that army of elephants. Those elephants were like mountains and exuded must everywhere. They were mangled and forced to retreat by Bhimasena's iron arrows. It was like winds driving away a mass of clouds in every direction. That maddened army was thus slaughtered by Pandava's son. Bhima released arrows at those elephants and was as radiant as the rising sun in the sky, striking everything in the world with his rays. Hundreds of Bhima's arrows wounded the elephants and they were as beautiful as masses of clouds in the sky, streaked with the rays of the sun. The son of the wind thus afflicted the elephants. Duryodhana was enraged at this and pierced him with sharp arrows. Bhima's eyes became red with rage, and he wished to destroy the king in a short instant. So he pierced him with arrows. With arrows wounding his limbs, he became angry and smilingly pierced Pandava Bhimasena back with iron arrows that were as bright as the sun's rays. The sign of a bejeweled elephant was on his standard. Footnote, Duryodhana's end of footnote. Embellished with gems. Pandava used broad-headed arrows to swiftly sever this, together with his bow. O venerable one, on seeing that Duryodhana was thus afflicted by Bhima, the lord of Anga arrived there on an elephant, wishing to attack him. On seeing that the elephant was advancing with a roar like the rumbling of the clouds, Bhimasena used iron arrows to severely strike it between its two frontal lobes. It passed through the body and penetrated the ground. The elephant fell down like a mountain struck by lightning. As the elephant fell, the lord of the militias also began to fall down. Footnote, meaning the lord of Anga. But the swift-acting Vrikodara sliced off his head with his broad-headed arrow. On seeing that the brave one had been brought down, his army fled. Horses, elephants, and charioteers were terrified and crushed infantry as they fled. As that army was scattered and routed in every direction, Pragjyotisha attacked Bhima astride an elephant. It was like Magavan astride an elephant, victorious against the Daityas and the Danavas. That supreme of elephants suddenly descended on Bhima. Its ears were drawn back, its forelegs and trunk were contracted, its eyes were dilated in rage, and it seemed about to consume Pandava. O venerable one, all the soldiers let out a great roar. Alas! Bhima has been killed by the elephant. O king, the Pandava soldiers were terrified by this roar and quickly ran away to the spot where Vrikodara was. O the king Yudhisthira thought that Vrikodara had been slain. With the Panchalas he attacked and surrounded Bhagadatta. Having surrounded the best of Rathas with chariots from every direction, he covered him with hundreds and thousands of sharp arrows. The lord of the mountains counted all these arrows with his goad and slaughtered the Pandus and Panchalas with his elephant. O Lord of the earth, in that battle we witnessed the aged Bhagadatta's extraordinary conduct, using his elephant. At this, the king of Dasharna attacked Pragjyotisha on a swift elephant that advanced from the flank. Both elephants were terrible in form, and the battle between them was like that between two winged mountains in ancient times, both covered with trees. Pragjyotisha's elephant circled around and struck the elephant of the king of Dasharna on the side, bringing it down. Bhagadatta used 7 javelins that were as bright as the rays of the sun. As his enemy was dislodged from his seat on the falling elephant, he slew him. Yudhisthira attacked King Bhagadatta and surrounded him from every direction with a great army of chariots. Astride his elephant and surrounded by all these rathas in every direction, he was resplendent like a flaming fire on a mountain in the midst of the forest. He was astride his elephant, inside a circle formed in every direction by fierce rathas who were archers and showered arrows at him from every side. The king of Pragjyotisha urged his bull among elephants and made it swiftly advance towards Yudhishthira's chariot. The mighty elephant grasped the chariot of Shini's grandson and used great force to fling it away. However, Duryodhana escaped. The charioteer abandoned the large Saindava horses that were yoked to the chariot and hurried to the spot where Satyaki was. The elephant swiftly emerged from that circle of chariots. Having emerged, it began to fling away all those kings. Like those bulls among men were frightened at its speed. In that battle, the kings thought that a single elephant had multiplied into hundreds. At that time, Bhagadatta on his elephant crushed the Pandavas like the king of the gods on Airavata acting against the Danavas. There was a terrible roar as the Panchalas fled. A great noise was made by the elephants and the horses. In that battle, Bhagadatta was like death before the Pandus. Bhima became angry and attacked Pragjyotisha again. The elephant sprinkled water from its trunk and frightened his horses, which then bore Partha away from the field. Kriti's son, Ruchiparva, swiftly attacked them. Stationed on his chariot, he showered arrows like death personified. The Lord of the Mountains used a well-crafted arrow with drooping tufts to dispatch Ruchiparva to Vaivashvata's eternal abode. When that brave one fell, Subhadra's son, Draupadi's sons, Chekitana, Drishtaketu, and Yuyutsu attacked the elephant. They wished to kill it. Roaring, they showered down arrows on it. The skilled rider urged the elephant with heels, toes, and goad. It swiftly advanced with its trunk extended and its eyes and ears immobile. It killed Yuyutsu's horses and charioteer with its feet. At this time, your son angrily rushed against the chariot of Subhadra's son. Astride his elephant, the king showered arrows on his enemies. He was, footnote, back to Bhagadatta, end of footnote. He showered arrows on his enemies. He was as dazzling as the sun that has arisen, scattering rays on the world. Arjuna's son pierced him with 12 arrows, and Yuyutsu with 10. Each of Draupadi's sons pierced him with 3 arrows, and so did Drishtaketu. Those well-released arrows stuck to the body, and the elephant looked resplendent, like a large cloud streaked with the rays of the sun. It was afflicted by arrows released by the enemy. But the elephant was controlled by the skill and enterprise of the rider. It began to fling away enemies to the left and to the right, like a herd of animals controlled in the forest by a cowherd with a staff. The soldiers were repeatedly afflicted by Bhagadatta. A grievous sound of lamentation arose among the fleeing Pandavas, like the cawing of crows when they are quickly attacked by a hawk. O king, when goaded by the hook, the king of elephants looked like a winged mountain in ancient times. It afflicted the enemy with great fear, like a group of traders at the sight of a turbulent ocean. As they ran away in fright, the elephants, charioteers, horses, and kings made a terrible noise. O king, in that battle, it filled the earth, the directions, and the sub-directions. The king was astride that supreme of elephants and severely oppressed the army of the enemy. This was like Virochana against the army of the gods in ancient times, when it was well protected in battle by the gods. The friend of the fire, footnote, the wind is the friend of the fire, end of footnote, began to blow violently and created dust. This covered the sky. The soldiers, in a short instant, The people thought that a single elephant had become hundreds of elephants and began to run away in every direction. We leave it there then.
Okay.
It's
Hurry on.
great. So we still got the fight with Bhagadatta going on. He's also called Pragjyotish because that's the name of his city.
Could you just give a
Pragjyotish.
little, before we stop, could you just give a little background on him?
Well, he was a friend, was an ally at some point or other. Or when Arjuna went on his conquest for collecting wealth for Yudhishthira's Rajasuya, Bhagadatta submitted to Arjuna at time. So they were kind of friends in a way. But he got a special boon from Shiva, I think, and he's very old, and he's got this elephant called Supratika, and it's really incredible as we've been reading. So I think in the next chapter will be described his major battle and how he is finally brought down.
How much
Anyway.
more is there with this Drona Parva?
A fair bit. We've got,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we'll finish this volume next time,
Okay, so
and then
I'll
we'll be
stop
on volume
recording.
6.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll stop recording now.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.